Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tokyo Recruiters slash Life After Recruitment. I'm Levi, your host, and thank you for being here. Today's episode is extremely cool. I had a great time recording this with Tyron Giuliani. You may have seen him on LinkedIn. I wasn't sure what to make of him, but after speaking with him, it's clear that he's an expert. He's built multiple multi-million dollar companies. Now he coaches people on LinkedIn, and he's been a bit of a mentor to me as well. This is an episode that is packed with information about how to stand out, how to build yourself as a brand, how to market on LinkedIn, what to say and how to say it in the direct messages. Just tons and tons of value. So if you're interested in standing out online and adding some creative solutions to your recruitment game, then I would definitely recommend checking out this episode. Enjoy. So leaving the industry and starting your own business, could you tell us a little bit about that transition?
Sure. So, before I went into recruiting, I had my own businesses then, and it's still running today, is in the wedding industry. So we provide wedding apparel. And if you search in Google, wedding dress rental in Japanese, will be top one or three, right? Just consistently. And we don't do paid media. So it's been organic. And that's resulted in us doing literally tens of thousands of couples over the last, 24, 25 years. When I started that, originally was just doing wedding ceremonies. I'd get dressed up as the officiator, as the priest, and go out
Oh,
and do weddings.
wow.
Yeah. And then during that time, I asked a customer, how much is that dress? Like rudely. And they said, oh, it costs this. I was like, they said like 300,000. I'm like, oh, you mean like 30,000? And like, no. And I'm thinking they're messing up the numbers in English. And they're like, no, 300,000. I'm like, and then they said to rent. And I was like, huh? So I went back to my wife, my partner at that time, and said, hey, we should do the dress stuff. Anyway, we built a
Mm.
business, but then quickly realized we can't work together. And those couples that can work together, like, bless their cotton socks, amazing that, you can work with your partner every day. But, both of us are kind of alphas in at that stage and not good. So I had to like do something else. And that's when I went to recruiting because I thought, well, I don't speak Japanese, but I can communicate well and I can tell stories and that's going to help. And I've sold, to start businesses. I had to get our first clients. So I went into recruiting and, I picked the Gaishke, the startup that was run by Americans. So I'm like, okay, cool. They work with foreign companies, I can do it. So I went into that. And in the first after about 5 years, 6 years of recruiting, I started to get very antsy and just like, okay, it's challenging in some respects, but in other respects, it was boring me and it wasn't fun anymore. So I started doing other businesses with my client network. We did a big thing with Japan Fashion Week, and was using all my, kind of advertising network and agencies. I did a competitive creative pitch. Like Coleman Camping was one of my clients, and back then Rich Guilfoyle was a president. And he wasn't happy with his agency. I said, well, why don't you change agencies? It's a multi-million account. People will pitch and, oh, which ones do you recommend? So I went through my client list and I got 4 of them to pitch. And one of, Beacon Communications, they won the pitch and took Coleman Camping. But then I got to a point in 2017 where it was like, okay, enough. Burning the candle at both ends. For me, it wasn't recruiting, it was unfun. The wins and the excitement of a placement just weren't enough to overcome the unfun things. And I literally got to a point where I could not go to the office again. And it was like I had the same experience with my grandfather. So he was an Italian immigrant to Australia and got injured and ended up working on the railways as a railway station master for 29 years. And at 30 years, all the benefits kind of doubled. He stopped working at 29 years and 9 months. And we all like, what are you doing? It's just 3 more months. You're on holiday stuff now. He could not go back for 3 months of work. And we were just like flabbergasted, like how I experienced exactly the same thing, 25 years later. I could not
Hmm.
do it again. And I just decided, look, I've got to stop this. And um, what do I want to do? I've got other businesses and they're running well. But my wife is also working and running two of the businesses that we set up. I can't be stopping. She'll be like, "What are you doing?" And I can't work with her. So I still have to, like until she stops, which hopefully in the next few years, but I have to find something and also recognize without purpose, you flounder. And, you can see so many examples of that where people have got to a point of success and then it just they just turn into a mess, and it's really a lack of purpose. And that's also cliched and horrible, but it's like, okay, find what that is. And what I found is, if I look back on my days of recruiting and being in a recruiting office, the part that I really loved the most, and it's strange because I've been working from home since 2017 and I don't like meeting people now at all, um, is that I liked giving my opinion. And one of the guys in my office used to always say, "Ty's 2 cents." But yeah, when people had issues, when people had questions about deals, they would come and speak and ask for advice because I'd done hundreds of them already. And I really like doing that. And I really like giving, tips and ideas. There's at least 5 guys from the recruiting days. I haven't recruited since 2015 that I still mentor. I still get questions to this day. So I really thought, okay, I like doing that. I like um, bringing out the best in someone. And this has been an evolution, because if I look back to when I was a recruiter at the start, I was, horrible. I was a horrible person, because, I was, when I went to recruiting, it was the place that we're in was a bit of a boiler room feel to
Hmm.
it. And we were like, we wanted to make money. I mean, the impact and doing, I never did dodgy stuff in recruiting. I can always, every night I can go to sleep. I never did send someone's resume without the permission. I never screwed over a client. I never screwed over a candidate, and I had, you can go through my LinkedIn, you'll see lots of people saying lovely things about me in my recruiting days. So I didn't do that, but I worked hard. And those that weren't working hard around me, yeah, I probably bullied. That's just the reality. And sorry to those that I did. As you mature and you get older and you get gray and you have kids, you realize that's not very nice. But what I did really enjoy was that mentoring and giving my advice. And then, like, okay, I want to get paid for it, and I want to get paid well, because the stuff that I can coach people through, that outcome for them can be massive. It can be disproportionately massive, right, to what I can say to someone. Um, and back then there was a bit of a boom that was starting in the internet, which was the kind of high ticket coaching space, really started to get their stride. And I was right the right way for that. I got a coach to show me exactly what to do. I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? I paid in the first year and a half over $80,000 in USD in coaching. Yeah,
Wow.
but that 80,000, there's an award here. That's a Two Comma Club award for $1 million. That was my first offer, and put $1 million in coaching fees, right? For 80K. That's a pretty good investment in my opinion. Um, so that's what I did. And then I thought, okay, I want to, coach people. But the thing I didn't want to do was have to, I didn't want to coach people necessarily in Japan or Japanese people, because I know I would get dragged into like face-to-face meetings and like, can we talk about this problem? Well, that could have been settled in a 1-minute email or a text. So I thought, okay, I will focus on outside of Japan. And I've had a few Japanese-based clients. They've all been foreigners, actually. Um, Lawyer and other marketer recruiters, um, but I've primarily coached US based people, UK, and Australia. They would be the top three. Some Canadians, um, and I structured a program. I learned how to do the acquisition. I learned how to do the conversion, and I learned how to do the delivery. And where the skill was as a recruiter, recruiters have exceptional talent in being able to find people and engaging with them. And the good recruiters, anyway, not the bad recruiters, but the good ones can get in there, find them, and persuade them to take, or encourage them to take certain action that we want them to take. In the business world, I found a lot of business owners, and that's who I focused on, small business owners. Usually, they're doing less than $1 million up to kind of 5 to 10 mil in revenue is the high end. And a lot of solopreneurs, they don't have that acquisition skill. They don't know how to do that, and they don't know how to convert them. So when they get them, they don't know how to do the best form of sale for their price point. Their delivery is usually very good. They know how to deliver their service. They've got good services. So that's what I really focused on, was like, okay, I'll show you acquisition techniques on the front end, and really the acquisition part, and the conversion part. Here's some ideas you can use. And I've kind of now branched more into the conversion part as well, the sales part, because I did realize that, I assumed that most people knew how to sell, but most people, business owners, don't. And that's where, there's an evolution I'm going through right now of structuring the acquisition and the conversion pretty closely. And that's what I've done for the last 7 years, or since 2017. And then watch LinkedIn change over that time, which it has dramatically changed. And I've had to change with it, kind of, reluctantly, but you've got to make changes. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. I mean, you took us perfectly on this journey. I didn't have to really guide this at all, and you told us about the past in your recruitment experience, and then yeah, you transition up until now. And so it sounds like basically the business has been how to get more clients, client acquisition, and how to convert those clients. And it's also especially, I guess, using LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've used Facebook groups and Facebook ads and YouTube and a whole range of things. And, for a small business owner in particular, it really is about just pick one to start with,
Mm-hmm.
and really go hard on that. And when you have exhausted that platform and you've tapped it, okay, add another channel. And what I see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, they try so many channels at once,
Mm-hmm.
and that gets hard. Now, if you've got a system that's working, yeah, sure, and you're kind of bored of it, move to another channel. But a lot of my business owners, they don't have a heap of time. They don't have a heap of skill in that area. As I said, they're very good at their service. I've got clients who, from heavy duty auto parts marketing, through to CPAs, through to some that were selling a high end $9,000 coffee, exquisite coffee maker for high end luxury boutiques. So there's a whole range of clients that I've coached. The thing that they lack is like, well, yeah, how do I find these people? How do I engage with them? And then I found, yeah, there's still a large gap in how they sell. So I've worked on kind of 3 different modes of them to be able to actually sell their service depending on their price point. But that's the big thing, is like getting in there and securing clients. And the same thing for recruiters. Coached recruiters in China, not Chinese, a British guy in China, Canadian guy in China, a bunch of Brits, one in America who's in the what's that club? Everyone's over $1 million a year. The name of their club, but in recruiting world in America, everyone kind of knows that. And it's the same thing. It's like, people play the short game on LinkedIn, especially on the
Mm-hmm.
client side. You know, there's a game to be played, and you can play the long game if you think in terms of like, okay, over the next year, I'm going to have this achieved. So by the end of this year, I'm going to have a warm bench of 25 clients that any day I can pick up the phone and speak to them, and they're going to love me. Like, that doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen in a year. And
How
then,
would you go about developing that? Like, I
yeah,
mean, it'll take time to explain, but
yeah.
just
So,
quickly.
yeah, one of my clients, he is in the China space, where can't recall what industry it is, but what we did with them is the same thing. Is okay, let's map out every company in the industry, and then let's rank them, okay? And usually segment them into the A, B, and C players, right? Because some candidates you meet that come across your desk, you can't do much, but maybe they're a C player, and it's a quick, you don't have to think about it, flip them out to a C client. But the A's and B's, they need the work. But you will find that only around 2 to 3% max of people will actually post and be active on LinkedIn. So you've got to start with a large pool, and then bring it down to a list of that you can manage. And 50 to 100 people is a good target across an industry of different companies. And then it's a matter of finding them, engaging with them, messaging them, giving them that kind of value. But what is value? I hate when people say give value. What is it? For me, to nurture someone inside LinkedIn, I have a system called the 1-10-4, where there's one message every 10 days with 4 bits of content. It's a tip, a tool, a resource, and a bit of gossip or a case study. But it's short, sharp, and snappy, and stuff they can execute straight away. Like tip for the advertising agencies, it's like, hey, or a business owner, like, today, stop what you're doing, go back, look at every deal that failed in the last 6 months, reconnect with them, and send this one-liner message. Here's a tool. Hey, I just got a new app I'm using on my phone. It helps me do this. It's really cool to look at. Hey, have a look at that. Here's a resource. Hey, if you're looking to, you're in the real estate industry, here's a list of the, 25 sites where you can find realtors that are looking to sell wholesale. And then a bit of gossip. If you're working in an industry, like in the advertising space, it would be like, hey, I just saw, Ogilvy just fired 3 of their creative directors. For some reason, they're going to bring in 3 new ones, and blah, blah, blah. A little bit of gossip so you can show. And every 10 days, that's going out in Messenger inside LinkedIn, because the difference between emailing it and messaging is whenever you go to LinkedIn and you see that red dot above Messenger, what do?
The red dot is showing that they're
A
online.
notification.
Oh, the notification. I see.
So as soon as you see that red dot, what do?
Click on it.
You click on it and open it. When you open up your inbox in the morning and you see all these emails, first thing I do is just like, I'm just seeing them like delete. There's subscriptions. I should get rid of that. Delete. Don't even read them, right? Unless I know that name. But on Messenger and LinkedIn, as soon as I see that red dot, and I've been on LinkedIn since April 2004, I see that red dot, I open it and I look at the message always, right? So you've got like 100% open rates in Messenger as opposed to 20 to 30% in email. Nurture these people and play the long game. It's all about giving, and sharing, and then the ask. And you can do it, whenever they post, and you'll come across some that are hyperactive or even active in their posting. Every time they're posting, you're giving your 2 cents, but you're never asking for anything. It's just give. It's the long game with these guys, and you're always in front of them. And if they're not that active on LinkedIn, the beauty of LinkedIn, you can test this out yourself. And I'll explain how you can test it. But, the LinkedIn engineering blog talks about your news feed and what do you see on your news feed. And it says that half of it is based on, they look at profiles that are like yours, and based on what other profiles are doing, they put recommended posts on your news feed. And the other half is on activity that you do. And it's looking at who you're connecting with, who you're searching for, who you're messaging, who you're engaging with. And it shares that part, right? Now, how can we use that as someone who wants to get their attention? If someone is inactive on LinkedIn and they don't do much activity, LinkedIn doesn't have much data to go by. But if you're the guy that's posting on their stuff, you're the guy that's messaging them, and you're posting regularly, whose stuff are they likely to share on their screen? Your stuff. And you can test this out by like finding a person who's a second degree connection that you've never interacted with, connect with them, comment on their stuff, message them, and see what you see you see their post for the next week, 2 weeks on your feed. So there's ways that, especially recruiters can get in there and start to build up a nice bench of warm people. And then when you get those NPC players, you've already got that conversation, you've already got that connection. And it's like, hey, Tom, I just came across ABC. He's done this, this, and this, and he's at this rate. And look, I didn't mention your company, but he actually said, you're a company that he's interested in,
Mm,
right? And if you're out in the market and you're doing that with candidates as well, I made a lot of money in recruiting just in pitching. I hated working roles unless it was retained. I hated the contingency search game. 90% of your effort's wasted. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Firms that are 100% contingency I would never touch them with a bar. If I was buying agencies, just 90% of the effort is just wasted. It's a horrible, horrible model. So, I would rather get retained searches, or I would just pitch people, just pitch, because I had a really strong bench of,
mhm,
kind of 13 agencies, some of the major ones and some of the independents, and just like, boom, got a really cool creative director. He's in Portugal. He's just won Cannes Award, blah, blah, blah. And that's the other thing was like, find, if be a part of your industry, be in the industry, not someone looking outside of the industry. So I used to, every time there was like the Cannes Awards, I would get the list, and then I would globally, and I would hunt everyone who got a titanium lion and a gold lion, creative directors. And then I could go and, and reach out to clients and say, hey, this guy, he's a Cannes Award. He's actually up for a move. What do you reckon? When Ogilvy and Mather rebuilt their creative team under a guy called Ajab, I put 7 of their creative team, and all of them were foreigners, and all of them were like Cannes Award, all from one list. Yeah, and it was
mm,
like boom, boom. He wanted that, and the next year, their O&M got the most creative awards of any of their offices globally, or second. So and that all came from the long game. And so, yes, building a bench is something that recruiters tend to be really, really poor at. And it's something that it just pays dividends for years.
mm. This is brilliant stuff. I mean, I can see that you're passionate about it clearly, and also that it works so well. And people just don't think about these things. Like they aren't really creative, I think, with the ways that they're making their approaches, like by looking at the Ken's Award, um, and building a bench. I did something similar with a newsletter,
Hmm.
that ended up, you know, getting me some new clients that I could open up, and people coming to me, as well as just having warm, people thinking that I'm an expert in this space, and then making that approach really easy. But it was never quite as organized as a system, as the 10, what is it, the
110
110
for.
for
Yeah.
110 for. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to, I mean, it's a lot of work to maybe come up with those 4 points, but first of all, you're going to be updated then. That's your market information that you're sharing with anybody. And also, you can send that to anyone in that space, and it's still tailored to them because they're in the industry. It's useful, but you don't have to make it different for each individual person and try to figure out, do they like mint chocolate chip ice cream, or
Right. Yeah.
what color is their dog's,
Yeah.
shirt or something.
And I think recruiters underestimate the amount of information that they have. And with today's AI technology, I mean, if I went back into recruiting, it would be a completely different ballgame the way I would do it now, especially on the acquisition side. I mean, there's so many tools, and recruiters are like, still like lagging behind. Like, if you're doing candidate meetings and you ain't recording them and using AI, you are a muppet. Like, you're a muppet. And if you haven't set up a webhook, so then it puts and populates your CRM automatically, you're a muppet. Like, you're doing
Mm,
stuff that is just ridiculous. Like,
mm,
everything that's transactional or repeatable should be made as an SOP and should be automated in today's
mm,
market. I mean, there's just no reason, why not. And the thing about recruiters, you've got so much information. So what I used to do, if I wanted to make an approach to a client, I would bring in candidates from that company for a week. So I would meet like 10 of them, and I'd get all the latest gossip. And every next candidate I would meet, I said, I just heard, might be a little bit of office romance between them. It'll be like, oh, how do you know? So surprised, like, yeah. And I'd meet another candidate. I say, "Oh, I just heard that this account is looking a bit dodgy," and then they'd be like, "Oh, Tyron, like, yeah, that's what I do." And then I have this big pool of knowledge. And then when I sat down with an agency person, like, I knew more what was happening in the industry than and I can absolutely say this 100% as, this is a reality. You will know more about the industry than company presidents that you're recruiting for. You will know more about their
Mm,
competitors. You will know more about the inside gossip if you're a good recruiter, if you're going in and learning it. So, one of the things that I set up was a agency dinner. So I'd get the heads of the agencies. They hadn't even met each other. And these were also foreigners in Japan. Like, there's not that many heads of agencies that were foreigners back then. And I'd like, well, you should meet him and let's have dinners and bring them, collectively together. Some people were like, oh, you're going to, cannibalize your client. No, it doesn't work like that. There's an
mm,
abundance of, coming from a place of abundance, you're never limited.
mm.
But that's the type of things to look for. I see
It's
um, Phil Carrigan, who runs Miranda, he does a lot of that. He organizes stuff for the clients. He's been, posting in farmer delegates for like years as a contributor. They even make a little caricature of him in their magazine. It's like getting, same thing I used to get into Adweek and Campaign News. I got all the PR, and that's another thing recruiters don't do. Like, it's so easy to get free PR. And it's the same thing. I call it favor magic. Find your industry, your leading trade magazines or journals. Find the editors, find the writers that are on LinkedIn, and you do the same thing. You just
mm,
consistently contribute on their posts. And then eventually you say, oh, by the way, I just did a research on ABC. Would that be interesting for you? Of course it is. They're dying for content. Now, I was in Adweek, I was in Campaign Asia, in Campaign, Branding Asia, all for free. And it was just by doing the favor magic. And then that adds the credibility. Yeah.
mm,
When Adweek did their yearly awards, at the end, I got invited, went to the award show. And then at the end of the night, it was a tussle between which of the agencies I go for the after party. And it's like, literally, I had Ajab of O&M and I had Tony Harris of BBDO, like, oh, come to our one, come to our one. I'll go to the one that's made me the most money. But that's what you want as a recruiter. You want to be a part of the industry, not someone looking out who's just kind of, there to make money of the industry.
mm.
LinkedIn helps you do that kind of stuff, because you can form those relationships a lot easier than having to meet face to face, having to go to networking events constantly and press in the flesh. I mean, they're all valuable, but you can do it at scale, especially if you're opening global markets or APAC markets.
I was just thinking why, you've come up with so many creative ways. And I mean, even on just this call, if someone were to do one of these things that you're talking about and implement it, it would probably be totally game changing for their recruitment career. But you seem to have all these ideas, and I don't know why, but other recruiters, it seems, I mean, even myself included, I came up with a couple of initiatives, and like this newsletter thing worked quite well, but it always felt like I couldn't be so creative. I wonder if it's just because the KPIs are there and you're thinking I need to follow instructions and I need to hit the numbers, and if I deviate from just what I know, then it's going to be a problem, and maybe that restricts people from investing in themselves as well. I know we talked about this, but what's your take on what made you different? Was there a turning point at some, for you at some point that you realized that you need to invest in yourself, or that you know, you want to do things a different way, and not bang your head against the wall, or was it just something you were born with, or?
Inherently, I'm pretty lazy. And I like FTO, fun things only. So I like to do the things that I like doing. So it all came from that. Like, how can I make this easier? How can I focus on the things that I like? But how can I make money with those? Because there's
Mm,
another, friend and who ex-recruiter. I won't say his name because he might watch this, but he'll know who I'm talking about. Who's so creative and spends so much time doing other things that then the recruiting suffers. Right.
mm,
So there's that balance. You can't spend days making a logo for a newsletter. um, it doesn't work like that. You've got to put a system in place and execute.
Mm.
And I think it's like a combination. There's a few things. A, personal branding of recruiters is very, 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 very poor in Japan. There's a few people that I see, they're out there, they're posting, and they're the ones that are going to get the most attention. There's a handful of them. Now, how many, especially gaijin recruiters, and I'm talking about that market. I don't know the Japan recruiting market well. My cousin-in-law and her husband are both in recruiting, or actually three of them, but I don't even know much about that market. So I'm talking about, foreigners that are here recruiting. There's only a handful that are branding themselves at all. And that comes from fear. That comes from not knowing what to talk about. That comes from, especially, the pressure from inside their office of people like, well, you're on LinkedIn, why are you doing that? So there's definitely fear, and there's a skills gap or a knowledge gap. But all of these things can be overcome really quickly by just gaining the knowledge, right? Like
Mm.
you as a going into your coaching and the kind of offers that you have. If I was a recruiter and I saw someone who's built 100 million a year, I want to learn from them. Like when I first started my recruiting life, I sat in front of Mark Saft, like he was the president of Ingenium back then. He was right in front of me. Like I was sitting like this and he's there. So I could hear his calls. And I had another guy, Eric, behind me who was doing really well. I could hear his calls. And I just like, okay, how's he saying that? Oh, okay, I'm going to say it on my next call. And then I realized, well, man, there must be people who can teach you this even better. And I went and found a recruiting coach as well and paid him.
Hmm.
And it was a case of like, okay, the investment is, 6K, 10K for the year, or whatever it was. I thought that's one placement, and I'm, and this is going to see me through. So I think a lot of recruiters are short term in their thinking. They're not investing their money, seeing it as an investment, where, learning something, even having an accountability buddy can change the game. Where
Mm.
every day you check in at the end of the day, or just simple little things can shift the needle dramatically. I think it's fear and a skills gap are the big things, and you learn how to recruit, so learn these other things.
Mm. So you've had quite a few coaches.
Yeah,
Do you currently have a coach,
yeah. I
or
have a coach as well right now.
okay? Is
Um,
it
um,
like life coaching or like a mentor for
no, this
business
one,
or?
and this is the shift that I'm going. He coaches coaches how
Mhm.
to coach. I mean, that's a bit of a pyramid, but and this is where I'm moving this year much more towards now, is more mentoring. Coaching is a natural byproduct when you mentor someone.
Mm.
But before with my clients, and it's been over 200 and I have to get the exact number, but it's been over 220, 230 clients that I've coached on LinkedIn acquisition stuff. But I coach them. So, okay, this is how I do it. This is how you can do it. They'll go kind of do it. And then I would fix it and say, okay, hey, show us your messaging. Well, kind of change it like this. I suggest this. But that works, but doesn't get enough results because
Mm.
people inherently will fall back to their default unless they change their habit. So yeah, moving forward, I've restructured all my coaching, and it's like, okay, profile, and I've brought in the AI elements. I've made an AI instance, a program that does this. So when I talk about, okay, let's tighten up our offer. How do we make an offer? Well, now go to my AI agent and put your details in, and we're going to make your offer. It's going to be made today. And then, like, okay, we're going to do your profile. Let's get rid of your resume. You're not looking for a job. You're looking for clients. Let's change it into a landing page. Every section, your about section, your experience sections. That could take a week to 2 weeks for someone to make. Now I've got, using my IP, using my frameworks, using the AI, I can say, okay, put it in this, go to this agent, and it gets made. So, and this came from, I was coaching a franchise, and I still actually had a coaching call before this one, where, there was 110, 120 of these business expense experts. For that client, I just made and say, copy and paste this here, do this. And that, just cut the coaching down dramatically. So I thought, I should now do that for everyone. So I've kind of restructured. And now it's more, I want to just say, okay, this week, I want you to do this, this, and this. Here's the tools to execute it. Do it, send it to me. Okay, you've done it right. Good. It reduces my coaching because it's produced what I need them to produce at the level I need them to produce. And then like, okay, now we're going to build your first lead magnet. Here's my lead magnet maker. Go and put the thing in, get your first lead magnet. Okay, now how are you going to put it in? All right, how you can do outreach. Here's 3 ways you can use it. Intent, go and do that. And like literally just say, watch and do, watch and do. So moving more towards that, and just to get people to revenue events faster. And I've got a coach, I've got a seminar with him tomorrow on exactly like, okay, structuring that and getting better at that. So yeah, like it's so easy if someone's done it before and they can show you how to do it. And I just pay for that. I mean, you either pay with time or pay with money. You've got 2 choices, right? The time's going to take you, why bother spending a year kind of working it out when I can just go to like this guy, James. He's actually a New Zealander based in Bali. He's got a lovely villa, does events down there and stuff. Like I will sit with him an hour and a half, watch his stuff and like done. That saved me months of trying to work it out. Yeah. So,
especially if it comes with like your program, it basically does most of the work for you, right? So you also don't even have to think about it and take as much action on it, because you not only know the quickest way to get to that point, but you have like a little head start as well, it sounds like.
oh yeah, it will save. I mean, just on the setup and getting stuff done, will save just weeks and weeks and weeks of setup. But on the execution, it will save a year. It will put you a year and a half ahead. I mean, just like, because the big
And how
thing,
many clients, in
yeah,
that year and a half can you gain?
right. And the big thing is just being consistent. Like, this is where if you have a system and it works, that's great. The problem is people stop implementing it because maybe it's too complex, or maybe it requires a lot of effort. And even an hour and a half on LinkedIn or 2 hours can seem, so hard. Come, give me a break. Like, recruiters are the laziest as well. That's the other thing. Recruiters are freaking lazy. They spend about 2 hours a day doing stuff, and the rest is hitting and refreshing their inbox, looking at stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like, if I owned a firm, everyone would have rescue time on their computer, and every day I'd be checking exactly where they were looking and what they were doing. Because, if they're there in the office for 9 to 5 and having an hour lunch break and having a couple of coffee breaks and stuff, they're probably recruiting for 2 or 3 hours a day, max, most, max. Yeah. And okay, if they want to work like that, fine. Well, let's make a plan for you. You can have a 2-hour break in the afternoon, but you've got to do 5 hours of recruiting and you've got to be doing these activities, and this is for someone who's starting. Someone who gets in the groove and are billing, they've worked it out. Okay, just leave them. If they're meeting what you need them to do and they only need to do 20 calls a day and not 50, fine. But, you've got to, for me, looking at my clients, it was really like, okay, I have to make it as easy as possible for them to be consistent. And that's been the big challenges. Okay, I've looked at every lesson, literally there's like 100 odd lessons. Every lesson, how can I make it easier? How can I make it easier to execute? Can I make an agent? Can I make a SOP? Can I make a framework? All right, redo that. But I know in the end, clients are going to be able to get to revenue faster. But the big thing, when they go in to do an hour and a half of LinkedIn activity, it's like their usual 2 days of being on LinkedIn, literally, because they only do about an hour and a half of concerted effort in 2 days usually. But now they can like bang it out. And that's the thing. If you can just be consistent on activity, and especially as entrepreneurs, if you're a solopreneur or working by yourself, you don't have to be working from 9 to 5. Like if you're a night owl, fine, work from 7 to 9 at night. Or, and I think, we had our chat. I do 9 to about 11:30 is a sweet spot for me. Then I break from 11:30 to about 1, sometimes to 2, but usually 1:30, and then I work through to 4. That's it. And then, 7 and 8, if I see stuff, I need to meet someone or I need to do something, I'm okay with doing it then as well. But I don't need to be, 9 to 5. I mean, that's just
Mm-hmm.
crazy for me as an entrepreneur or as a solopreneur anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to be consistent every day. Yeah, because a lot of recruiters
Just
they get
manageable.
yeah, a lot of recruiters get in there and they've got to be seen to be doing activity all day, but they're spinning their wheels,
Mm-hmm.
doing unproductive stuff.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's too easy to get distracted. I don't know what happened my first couple of years. I swear. I mean, I was blessed to not kind of have LinkedIn at all in my business
Hmm.
to start, and so there was no scrolling. I was never on LinkedIn at all, and I wasn't distracted like going on Facebook. I felt like I was very committed and just executing.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think that
commitment.
also, I was staying till 11 p.m. in the office, and I wasn't wasting my time from 8 to 11 p.m. for sure, even
Right.
if I was, um, yeah, I think something changed and I got burnt out a lot faster, maybe because it was going in that direction, and maybe having a better system of how do I delegate these tasks, and getting some support, and more tools
Yeah.
as well. I think that could have saved my recruitment career, a lot earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how I would approach it if I was going back into it as well. So super valuable stuff. I guess as we're about to wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Um, I think 2025 in particular is for your audience, which is recruiters. Um, it's really you've got to get visible because differentiating yourself, saying, "Oh, we recruit the top talent," or we know the best people. Like that's nothing different. There's no differentiation there at all. Like
Yeah.
everyone claims that. Everyone, no one says, we have mediocre candidates. Our candidates, they're okay.
Yeah.
Like, bring the data, not the drama. That's what I always tell my clients. Bring the data, not the drama.
Mm,
Like, we place candidates, our candidates stay on average 2 years and 3 months. They see pay raises of this, they get promoted, but like start getting data about your candidates. That's the first thing. Like, start getting more intelligent about your candidates so you can present that as a differentiator. But
mm,
the big differentiator is you. Like when you write something, if you write something and think, oh, anyone could have written this, like delete it.
mm,
Write something that only you possibly could have written it. That's a really easy filter to put stuff out there and about yourself. Like put stuff out there that only you could have done it because only
mm,
you have your lived experiences. So yeah, I think 2025 for recruiters in particular, differentiate yourself by being you and getting visual and putting yourself out there and
mm,
being there and engaging. And business owners, recruiting firm owners, that someone's on LinkedIn and like encourage everyone to be engaging. And like we used to have little competitions in our office. We're like, okay, let's do an hour of name collecting, because yeah,
mhm,
when I started recruiting, there was no LinkedIn when I started recruiting. It wasn't the option of you could use it. There wasn't any LinkedIn. We had a little red book. I don't know if they still have it in recruiting. It's a red book from one of the chambers of commerce, or whatever, that has all the companies, all the foreign companies in Japan, and literally start at M and start calling. That was my first day. Like, okay. Um, like, why not do that on LinkedIn? Get everyone, okay, everyone put up our profiles for the next hour. Let's hit, everyone, got to do some prep. Like, let's make our lists of companies where we want to go after or potential clients. Let's find top tier candidates. If you're doing CEOs, find every CEO in your industry, find every director of sales in your industry, every director of whatever your thing is. And then for an hour, everyone in the office putting content into deliberate engagement, has a purpose, and how much of this we're going to do and what are we trying to do with these people. So I would encourage like spending dedicating that time to get in there and building your personal brand on LinkedIn by showing your philosophy, showing your processes, unveiling the curtain. Because a lot of companies don't know what's the difference between a retainer and contingency. How does it work? Like at the end of the day, especially in the Japan market, it's usually the same fee, right? But you're getting like white glove luxury service as a retainer for the same price of some contingency that you're running first past the post scramble. It's just bizarre to me. That's one of the reasons I left recruiting is the Japan market, they couldn't, that's because recruiters aren't talking about it and showing it. There's some that
Mm.
are, revealing more, but yeah, that's the big thing. I think winning is going to be about you having more of a presence on the socials, but being very deliberate. You're funneling people. You're showing top of funnel, awareness. You're showing middle of funnel where it's about this is the process. This is how we're doing, and we're doing bottom of funnel, sharing those wins, sharing those placements, and how it happened. So yeah, that's my tip for 2025.
Nice. I guess just to talk about this a little bit more because it's interesting. I feel like it's great advice to get more visible, but I see that some people sometimes try to get visible and it seems like they're not doing it so strategically, right? It seems like they're maybe doing it and it's just noise,
Yeah.
like you said. Just posting something and it's anyone could have written this, or there's no data that's actually helpful. So I feel like it's not just the fact that it's being posted on social media that it's good. It's the fact that you're adding value, like you would say, that you're actually giving something. You're giving them, you're thinking about how can I build a community? You could build it outside of LinkedIn or social media completely and just be the person who they go to and you're, bringing them all together. So there's like many ways maybe to approach it, and social media is just going to grow as like a bigger and bigger space, but you should go where your clients are and
Right.
give them what they need,
Yeah.
basically, right?
One of the other good filters, and this is something I really want to focus on myself, because recruiters can make money with never posting anything on LinkedIn, because I did for years. I didn't post anything. It was just I worked out how to get, people's attention, how to get people to respond. I used pattern interrupts, irresistible questions. There's different techniques I would use to get people to respond. And I hate doing content. Just hate it. I
Mm,
hate it. So I'm starting again. But what I did, I looked at all the top creators, how they're doing it, how they're making money. I'm like, okay, I'm going to replicate that. And for me, unfortunately, I deleted my LinkedIn account accidentally. There's a story behind that. But, I'm starting that process again. But I know it's going to take that 6 to 12-month burn, because that's what it kind of takes. But in the meantime, I can get into Messenger and I can do all those activities and all that warming and make money still.
mm,
And recruiters can do the same. But adding that extra element where you start to feed and you can see yourself as an authority and other people see you as an authority, the inbound will come. Really, it's something that if you can have, there's an inflection point where you start to have as many people dropping in your inbox as you've gone out and reached. And
mm. That's a
that's
nice
pretty cool.
moment.
But that takes that activity
Hmm.
and posting it, as you said, like you just can't. A really good filter is, would my client's sales director show this post to their CEO?
Mm.
Would they waste their
Hey,
time
look, this
with that?
recruiter just got promoted.
Yeah, woohoo! And this is the other thing, recruiters. No one cares a rat's beep that you were the top biller in 2022 and 2021 and 2000, and you met this amount of candidates, and they don't care. They care about
Mm,
themselves. What can you do for them? I see these recruiter profiles, which they just have resumes, fine, and all it is them, 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 them. Like, they don't care. They want to know how are you going to treat me? Are you just,
mm,
when I see that, I'm like, oh, this guy's just gonna, he's just after money. This guy's all about the money. And that may not
mm,
be the case. Some person may not, but the way that they're promoting themselves is just wrong. It's not the psychology. People, we justify our emotions with logic, right? But it's the emotion, the feels that gets
mm,
people. So putting stuff out there, put stuff out there that is, original to you. And then the other one is, would they show this to their boss? And wouldn't, they wouldn't say, why are you showing me this rubbish? And that's the same thing with when you're messaging and you're engaging with someone. If you wouldn't say that in real life, with what you know of that person, with what your relationship with that person is, if you wouldn't say it in real life, don't type it in Messenger. I mean, that's so easy. Like, don't, and stop losing the ability to communicate in Messenger. People get in there and they completely disregard 1,000 years of communication. Like, there is the anatomy of conversation is observation, right? We observe something, then it's question, observation, question, answer, and analogy, question, answer. It doesn't go like this big flow of just, hi, I'm a recruiter, I've got this role. Are you like, imagine walking up to someone at a networking event and doing that to them. It's exactly the same in Messenger. Like, my God, like, some people just need a sitting down and a stern talking to.
I mean, I think it's just because maybe it's the laziness, and also just because that's what they're told to do from the top.
It's their model. If you're working in the contingency model as well, then you're constantly you're
trying to get lucky, basically.
Trying to get lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we could go about, talking about this for another couple of hours, but I'll cut it off now. Thank you very much.
I'll go on and on if you don't stop me.
No, it's been fun. I have more to say on this for sure. But anyone that wants to learn more about selling themselves on LinkedIn and developing a presence, definitely sounds like get Ty's 2 cents. Where should they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Tyron Giuliani in the entire world of 7 billion people. So reach out to me on Messenger. As I said, the stuff that I've learned and executed in the last 7 years, I wish I could have known half of it when I was a recruiter. It would have changed everything.
So save your time and send Ty a message.
Yeah, send me a message.
Send him your CV and 10 pages of
send me that.
Things about you.
Yeah, I'm really interested.
All right. Thank you very much for the times.
My pleasure.
All right.